Guys, make no mistake about it, the left is trying to prevent Donald Trump from running for president. And if that happens, there's going to be a civil war. That is literally, it's not possible. They cannot prevent Donald from running. And they want you to vote for a man with dementia. They want to tell you that you have no other option, but they're losing. They've obliterated themselves here. As a matter of fact, the blunder is so enormous. They've sacked their queen and gotten nothing for it in chess terms that they have to keep Trump from running, or something else terrible is gonna happen, because they've basically ensured. I won't say ensured. They've increased the likelihood of his victory to 90%, because the entire world sees the left as openly pathetic now. They've made their move. They're openly totalitarian, and so they have to step in and try to crush us. But the problem is they can't. They can't, because there's too many of us. So I'm extremely interested to see what's going to happen here. And the fact that everyone sees them as openly politically corrupt, as anti-American. And the anti-American stances by the left are just skyrocketing. We literally have leftists chanting on college campuses, "Death to America." We see them supporting terrorists, literal terrorists. We have the left not only uninterested in topics that are destroying the country, like the economy or the southern border, they're not even willing to talk about it. And simultaneously, they're saying, vote for a man with dementia, and in order to save democracy, we're going to put our opposition in jail. This is the current state of the left, and everyone sees them for what they are. The leftists are only ashamed that they're acting out in real life a 1984 novel when you point it out. Besides that, they're perfectly happy to do it. In the same way, Germans were perfectly happy to do what they did in the 1940s, despite the fact that it was crimes against humanity. Okay, guys, it is a very special time in our democracy because the left is finally widely recognized as openly totalitarian. I'm talking, of course, about the Trump trial. I'm just going to use his name. I don't care if this video gets throttled or demonetized, because we're fighting a bigger war here than trying to get a single video to have, you know, the reach that it should have. This is a battle against darkness. So even if people watch this in the future, I feel like it's worth it, because I'm not gonna censor myself. I'm just gonna say what's objectively true here. So we have two videos here. One of Ramaswamy. He went to New York to make comments about the Trump trial. Trump is no longer under a gag order. His poll numbers are sky high. The Speaker of the House of Representatives was at this trial. Many other important people were at this trial. The comments being made here normally would get no coverage. They would not be shown to anybody, especially nobody from my generation, if it weren't for Elon Musk saying, you know what, we're not going to do that thing called censorship where we try to create an authoritarian regime for the radical left.
I want to thank my colleagues, Governor Burgum, Congressman Mills, and Congressman Donalds, for laying out the political backdrop here. This is a politicized persecution that is nakedly apparent. What I want to do is dive a little bit deeper.
It is completely nakedly apparent to any person that's watching. And the thing is because the left doesn't deal in objective realities or objective parameters, since postmodernism says those concepts are oppressive, they only shift their modus operandi when they get seen as totalitarian. They don't actually care if they are. They aren't conducting self-evaluations to discover, are we actually being moral? Are we doing the right thing? All of that requires objective frameworks, which are oppressive, reason, and rationality. And instead, what they operate from is being seen as a fraud. And the fact that everyone sees them as openly politically corrupt, as anti-American. And the anti-American stances by the left are just skyrocketing. We literally have leftists chanting on college campuses, "Death to America." We see them supporting terrorists, literal terrorists. We have the left not only uninterested in topics that are destroying the country, like the economy or the southern border, they're not even willing to talk about it. And simultaneously, they're saying, vote for a man with dementia. And in order to save democracy, we're going to put our opposition in jail. This is the current state of the left, and everyone sees them for what they are.
Into what we actually learned today in that courtroom. What are we seeing there? First of all, I learned a lot from being in there in person. It is one of the most depressing places I have been in my life, but it is fitting because the only thing more depressing than the environment of that courtroom is what's actually happening in there. It's straight out of a Kafka novel. The prosecution's main strategy appears to be to
this is eerie stuff.
bore the jurors into submission. And if you look in that direction, sadly, it may appear to actually be working. Now, I would like for anybody, anybody here in the press, anybody at home, anybody in MSNBC or the media afterwards,
or the hundreds of millions of people that are going to get to watch us on X because Elon's a G,
to clearly state what exactly is the crime that Donald Trump committed. Oh, wait. We have not heard a good answer to that question. It has been vague.
Exactly. It's not meant to be coherent. They're not meant to use logic and rationality. What they're meant to do is demonize in leftist identity politics fashion Trump as the wrong class of person, as he's part of the wrong group, so therefore he has no virtue, he has no merit, there's nothing to what he has to say. The left can't debate ideas because, again, they view objective frameworks and the mechanisms that reveal truth, like reason and rationality, to be oppressive mechanisms. So they aren't interested in debating, they aren't interested in vetting ideas. All that they do is say, this is the wrong type of human. They did the same thing with Alex Jones.
Until today, you heard Michael Cohen's testimony, after which I would say it is less clear than ever what that crime actually was. They'll say falsifying business records. Well, let's look at who did we learn falsified business records today? Yet, what, hour, 2 hours, felt like it could have been 7 hours, of Michael Cohen talking about how he falsified business records. Okay, so you have a guy who has been...
Right, but to the left, individual guys, this... You might think I'm reaching here, but I'm completely not. This follows the doctrine of Marxism. To them, there is no such thing as an individual identity. So for someone else to say, I falsified documents, but I was on the same team as Trump, is enough to say Trump is a criminal in their minds, because Marxism is so disconnected from the objective world.
A perjurer in the past that is now saying he falsified business records. What is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Now, it appears to be what they might allege is some sort of bookkeeping error or whatever. The real bookkeeping that we need accounting of is Judge Merchan's own family member collecting millions of dollars as a Democratic operative, using the existence of this trial as a fundraising ploy for Democrats.
Like I said, I'm not worried about what's going to happen here. The CIA and the left in the government is paying people to be leftist operatives. That's the only way you can get people to say the opposite of the truth repeatedly, because otherwise they're just paying such a high cost. If they're not like psychopaths, if they weren't like born psychopaths, they're paying a very high mental cost to saying the opposite of the truth repeatedly, and they're being paid for it.
Democrats. This is unconscionable. Imagine if the same shoe fit the other foot. Imagine if it was Joe Biden that was on trial. You had a Republican judge whose son was collecting millions of dollars as a Republican op.
Right, but we're part of the wrong group. We're not meant to have equal person status according to the left. We are deplorables. We are not deserving of the ability to speak freely, as far as they're concerned. And so they're openly totalitarian, they're openly evil, and they're the ones saying we should protect democracy. I'm done staying silent.
What would you all be saying? This would not be justice, this is injustice.
I'm speaking for a lot of Gen Z here, especially young men who understand what's going on.
At its worst. So let's go even a layer deeper, right? Because let's go even a layer deeper, actually. The alleged crime here is supposedly, they try to point to this every day, that he does not actually use campaign funds, that he used personal funds. Well, let's get this straight. Suppose Donald Trump had used campaign funds to make a personal expense. They'd be going after him for that.
There's endless leftists that do that. It's hilarious.
So if they're going to get him going or they're going to get him coming, that is the best proof that this is a politicized sham.
Yeah, correct. Completely correct.
By piece. If you tell somebody to go buy you a suit and you want to look good on television because that'll affect the voters, the way voters vote for you, you know what? They prosecute politicians if they use campaign funds to buy a suit. If they say go get a haircut, if you use campaign funds to get a haircut because you want to look good to the voters, they will actually prosecute you for using campaign funds for a personal expense. Yet the entire legal theory of this case, the whole case that Alvin Bragg has brought, depends on one premise for them to charge this as a felony, is that Donald Trump somehow should have used campaign funds to make an allegedly personal payment.
Guys, make no mistake about it, the left is trying to prevent Donald Trump from running for president. And if that happens, there's going to be a civil war. That is literally, it's not possible. They cannot prevent Donald from running. And they want you to vote for a man with dementia. They want to tell you that you have no other option, but they're losing. They've obliterated themselves here. As a matter of fact, the blunder is so enormous. They've sacked their queen and gotten nothing for it in chess terms that they have to keep Trump from running, or something else terrible is gonna happen, because they've basically ensured. I won't say ensured. They've increased the likelihood of his victory to 90%, because the entire world sees the left as openly pathetic now. They've made their move. They're openly totalitarian, and so they have to step in and try to crush us. But the problem is they can't. They can't because there's too many of us. So I'm extremely interested to see what's going to happen here. Now we're gonna move over to move over to see this, because this is serious. We're living through a crazy time. We're living through history. I feel like something big is about to happen. I feel like something big is about to start. I don't know what it is, though.
Our president now in court about to speak to the cameras. Let's drop on in.
Surrogates, and they are speaking very beautifully, and they come all from all over Washington, and they're highly respected, and they think this is the greatest scam they've ever seen. And some are Democrats. They're very embarrassed by what's going on.
Many Democrats are very embarrassed. This is the biggest scam that we've ever seen.
I just want to start by saying that on the electric vehicles that Biden is pushing down everybody's throat, even though people don't want them.
Keep in mind, Trump has been doing rallies in New York with hundreds of thousands of people. So he's turned this completely on the heads of the people that want to try to humiliate him or damage his brand. And in fact, it's humiliating to the people that brought him there, because they're trying to shame him. They're trying to say, oh, look, this guy has to go to court. He must be a bad person. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of people literally are cheering for him.
He wants to put a big tariff on
in New York,
China, which is a suggestion that I said, where have you been for 3.5 years? They should have done it a long time ago. But they've also got to do it on other vehicles, and they have to do it on a lot of other products, because China's eating our lunch right now. And they went away from what I was doing. They're eating our lunch, so they have to do it on much more than electric vehicles. And they have to get going fast, but it should have been done 3.5 years ago.
You see Biden's response to that was like, Trump's been feeding them. They don't engage in arguments. They just, and the left was cheering that on when Biden said that. And you realize that it's really between two sides. One who is interested in ideas and can think, uses reason, rationality, logic, morality, and looks at the world and is actually upset with the fact that our country is failing in every way you can measure it. And then people that are just driven by resentment, and they're willing to sacrifice everything on the altar of their left-wing ideology.
And I started, and then they started playing games, and it was very bad for the auto industry. In Michigan, the auto industry is doing very poorly because jobs are starting to leave. We're losing. You know, with the electric vehicle mandate, they're going to be made in China. They're all going to be made.
It's so eerie to see basically what is an emperor standing behind police, who we all know that they couldn't arrest him because then people would rise up. It's such an eerie thing to see. We've never seen this literally in the history of our nation.
In China and also in Mexico, owned by China. Poll just came out, the very respected Redfield Wilton, and it has us up 6 in Michigan, 7 in North Carolina, Pennsylvania +2, Georgia +5, Florida +9. Arizona +2, and up in every other place 2. So that just came out. That's on top of yesterday's New York Times poll. I think today I might.
The left is openly totalitarian, and the reason why tyrannies can repeat is because the ideology tells the people that are perpetuating the tyranny that they are above reality in a very significant sense. The leftists are only ashamed that they're acting out in real life a 1984 novel when you point it out. Besides that, they're perfectly happy to do it. In the same way, Germans were perfectly happy to do what they did in the 1940s, despite the fact that it was crimes against humanity. We're dealing with people who currently, if they had power, would turn the United States into a communist regime, into an authoritarian leftist regime where the state spies on people and prosecutes people for thought crimes. We're living with people who support that, whose desired goal is that. We're living with people who on the left chant death to America in their support of terrorist organizations. This is currently who they are.
Just quote somebody that frankly has been extremely respectful to me over the last period of a few months. He's watching this scam taking place. Michael Avenatti. Have you heard the name? He said, the next time you're accused of something by someone, a co-worker, neighbor, friend, significant other, stranger, ask yourself if it would be okay if only they were allowed to speak, accuse, antagonize, while you were not allowed to respond. He's talking about the gag order.
Right, and the gag order is gone now, and he's able to respond, but think how ridiculous it was that he wasn't able to respond.
Or defend yourself in any way. If your answer is no, then you too should be angered by Trump not being allowed to respond to the various people that are making comments. Now think of it. You ask me questions, I'm not allowed to respond. They're the easiest questions I could possibly be asked. Only a guy like Biden couldn't answer those questions because he's not there. You ready? So here's a couple of quotes. Mark Levin, great man, great legal talent. This is not a trial of Donald Trump. It's a case of the Democrat Party versus America. It also represents the greatest effort to interfere with and steal a federal election in American political history. Biden is seeking to clear the field. He wants to clear the field because he can't do it himself. So he's weaponized the Department of Justice. And
it's insane. We're living through history.
As you know, they have their people in
listen to all of this.
That room. The DOJ is in that room because they want to try and hurt me. Now, the good news is my poll numbers have gone up significantly.
See, they're enraged by that. Their deformed leftist hatred for objective reality is perfectly archetypally presented towards a objective masculine winner, a billionaire president, unapologetically masculine man. This isn't by accident. Trump embodies every aspect of reality that they detest, especially the losers.
This is not what they had in mind. Newt Gingrich, this is without precedent in American history. It has never occurred to President John Adams or anybody else that you could jail your primary competitor.
It's completely shameful. We are living through a black cloud of tyranny that's trying to threaten America right now. I mean, it's just completely unthinkable that the left is trying to do what they're doing. But they openly hate America, and they admit this in their support with Hamas. But they were narcissistic enough to think that they could tell people Trump was a bad person and people would listen. But in fact, people now support Trump more than ever before. And this is the Achilles heel of the leftist regime. Their biggest disadvantage is actually that they are disconnected from reality. You'd think that they'd learn after indicting him 70 times, seeing the support for him go up, that, oh, maybe we should indict him another 5 times. This seems to be not working. But no, they indicted him 10 more times. His support rose. Then they started this trial trying to make him a felon. The poll numbers are skyrocketing in favor of Trump. They don't learn because they're arrogant, because they're narcissistic, because the postmodern neo-Marxist ideology commands people to think that reality is made in the image of resentful psychological frameworks that despise competence, meritocracy, individuality, reason, rationality, and any type of objective framework.
Your primary opponent, in his case, Vice President Thomas Jefferson. This goes back a long way. This has never happened in our country before. There's never been anything like this. Andy McCarthy just came out. New Yorkers should be outraged at the mockery Bragg is making of the state's legal system as the entire country looks on. The entire world is looking on. There's a very bad thing that's happening in New York. Businesses are leaving New York because of what happened here.
The leftists continue to pay dearly for their incompetence and evil. But as we see from their destroyed cities with literal drug-addicted zombies walking around, they don't care about the well-being of humanity. They will sacrifice anything on the altar of their deranged insanity.
And what happened with another crooked judge, Engoron. Totally crooked, and he's under investigation right now, as he should be. He's under a big investigation, I hear, right now. Jonathan Turley, experts are shrugging, not sure what the crime is being alleged. Prosecutors have not explained why denoting this as a legal expense was wrong. So they say that the bookkeeping error, I paid a lawyer a certain amount of money. We marked it down as legal expense. So I had a legal expense. And
these people are so insane. They're so ridiculous.
I marked it down as a legal expense. I didn't mark it down as construction of a wall, construction of a building. I didn't mark it down as electricity costs. I took a legal expense and they called it, I didn't do it, a bookkeeper did it. You did it exactly right.
Yeah, the case is not built on logic, reason, or rationality. Again, that should scare everybody. We are seeing how the left operates. They are not interested in objective frameworks. They are manifesting their absolute hatred for humanity and reality here. And it's unsurprising that this would come from the core of this degeneracy, which is in New York.
Took a legal expense and called it a legal expense. This is the whole case. Are you allowed to call a legal expense a legal expense? I don't know what else you'd call it, actually. But he brings it up here, the legal expense. It was, what's the problem? I never thought that as an attorney I could see a system like New York's, one of the most sophisticated legal bars in the world, really debase itself so badly. This judge should not be allowed in the case, and we should not allow this case to go forward.
The world is seeing how openly immoral the left is. I feel things shifting. People are becoming less afraid.
Mershon should rule in favor of a directed verdict immediately. There is an insufficient amount of evidence. No crime has been shown. No crime's been committed. There's been no crime. Judge Janine Pirro, she talks here. She's very excited here. He's a fool. He's not an experienced judge, so I'll make that one a little short. I don't want to insult anybody. Greg Jarrett, brilliant guy. Greg's argument is legally flawed. The Federal Election Commission, FEC, determined there was no campaign finance violation. The Department of Justice agreed. No civil fine was levied or criminal charge rendered. Those two entities have exclusive authority over federal elections. The state has absolute...
The world can see that these charges were made to be felonies rather than be based on anything. There's no crime that he's committed, just as there's been no crime in any of the past civil cases that he's been a part of. It's just been looting activities by the left. It's been BLM looting in a courtroom. That's what it's been. Completely ridiculous.
No authority.
It's a good thing Trump's net worth went up by $4 billion. Otherwise, he might be in trouble.
The city, Bragg, has no authority, and Bragg never wanted to bring this case, in all fairness to him. He never wanted to bring this case. Not a local prosecutor such as Alvin Bragg should be involved in this case. And by the way, the judge, as you know, is totally conflicted, and everybody's talking about it. It's an embarrassment to New York legal analyst Michael Moore of CNN.
The reason why this is so enraging to the left, on top of being exposed as frauds, is that Trump appears bigger than all of them. I don't mean physically, although he is bigger physically. I mean, looking at this, you see a man of righteousness standing around a bunch of hyenas, towering over them and calling them out. That's what people see here, and you weren't supposed to be able to see this on the internet. In fact, I'm sure this is being censored if you're watching on YouTube, but on X we get to see this.
Doesn't think the prosecution has proven its case. Senator John Kennedy, respected gentleman, I will tell you, that trial says more about politics than it does about an alleged crime. If you want to hide something from Bragg, you put it in the law book. Bringing in a fellow criminal trial, it hasn't proved to be a felony. There was no crime. Everybody's saying there's no crime. There is absolutely. But I've been here for almost 4 weeks in an icebox. I call it the icebox, listening to a judge who's totally corrupt and conflicted. Will Scharf, highly respected.
It's good versus evil, and you can tell that this is spiritually good versus evil.
Hush money, it's not a...
It's apparent to any warm-blooded human.
Crime. Signing an NDA is not a crime. By the way, Congress, everybody in Congress have NDAs. NDAs are very common. Non-disclosure agreements. They're not a crime.
Even celebrities use NDAs when they're dating a woman. They're like, here, sign this NDA. It's extremely common.
Claimant, CBS Morning News, there's no evidence that this case is about campaign election violations. There's no evidence. But again, we go back to the federal law. The FEC, Federal Election Commission, said there's not a problem. There's no case. And Vivek is here right now, so he can speak for himself. He said this is a sham trial. It's politically motivated. It's an assault on the leading candidate for U.S. president. I would expect he would say something good, actually, so I won't go through the rest, but he's here. He's going to talk to you. The Speaker of the House is here. We have Byron Donalds.
He's not alone.
Corey is here. We have a lot of great people here to talk to you, and they won't let them speak here. I guess they want to make it difficult for them to speak. So for some reason, I can speak here, but I'm the only one that's allowed. The gag order has to come off. So when you ask me a question about the people that we're talking about, I'm not allowed to answer. There's never been anything like this in the history of our country. It's a scam.
The left has to be calculating the point at which civil war starts. That has to be part of the calculation, and it's eerie, but that's where we are. That's where the left has put us. When tyranny becomes the law, rebelling against tyranny becomes duty.
Election interference at a level that's never taken place before. And now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go into the icebox and sit for a long time. Thank you very much.
What's incredible is that they can't control the narrative anymore. Elon is a G. The world's woken up. The swing states are clearly in favor of Trump. Guys, something big is coming. The left is aware that they've wrecked themselves. If you're watching still, subscribe to the channel. Like the video. Maybe this can get recommended to people, but like the video, guys. We are exposing the forces of darkness.